You're listening to Unlocking Vulnerability, a podcast produced by Helen helping you better understand consumer vulnerability.
Hello, I'm Helen and welcome to Unlocking Vulnerability. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome my special guest, Benedicta Lasoye. Benedicta, also affectionately known as Bee, is a communities officer at Aylesbury Town Council and has been instrumental in making Aylesbury a dementia-friendly town. Her LinkedIn tagline is "Spreading a bit of sparkle," which I absolutely love, and it sums her up perfectly. Hi Bee, it's wonderful to have you on my podcast.
Hi Helen, I am really thankful and I'm excited to speak with you today, and I'm really thankful that you've given me the opportunity to talk about the importance of community to me, so thanks for that.
No, you're really welcome. I'm just really interested to see what you're going to share with us today. So before we start, do you want to give a brief introduction to yourself?
Yes, of course, happily. Normally when people ask me this, I talk about the power of three. Normally three things I'll tell you. The first one is I love the colour yellow because it's bright and happy. I love talking and I love people. But if I was going to put that into a little bit more detail, here we are. So I'm an Aylesbury duck, born at the Royal Bucks Hospital in Aylesbury, and I am the last and the third child of first generation Ghanaian parents who had a career in medicine. For me, I've always been around people, and I think being the last born, you kind of have to find a voice somewhere, otherwise you miss out. I've always enjoyed talking and I love sharing stories. 20 years ago, and that's making me feel a little bit old, 20 years ago, I graduated with a 2-1 honours in communication at the University of Lincoln. And I guess in a really funny way, that's officially allowed me to talk. So I literally have a qualification that says, B, you can yap. So I will happily run with that. Helen, for me, community has been the foundation of who I am as a person, both professionally and personally, as a daughter, a sister, wife, mother, friend, and colleague. I'm trying to really put into practice a growth mindset. It's something I've been working on myself over a period of time. I would probably say that I am forever optimistic. That glass is always half full. I just think rather than looking at what's not there, let's try and look at a little bit more of what is there. So being able to talk about community and being able to talk about how we're changing and evolving, I think is a really great time for me to be on your podcast. So thank you.
You're really welcome. No, I'm really excited about our discussion today and what we're going to be talking about. So we've actually been connected now, Bee, for well over a year, and I always love our conversations. We never seem to stop talking, do we?
Not at all, no.
The work you do and your passion for people always intrigue me, and I think that's something that we really do have in common. Tell the listeners about what drives you to do the work that you do in the field that you do it in.
Helen, it's my first teachers. It's my parents. My parents, as I said, they worked in medicine, and to even break it down further, they worked in a psychiatric hospital at St John's in Stone in Buckinghamshire. They were supporting and helping people who had challenges with their mental health. I used to go and visit, and from a really early age, I've always been aware of the sense of community. It's being able to support and understand how you can help people do things as opposed to take things away from them and look at the things that they can't do. Again, it's that optimistic way of living. I remember fondly when I've been to see mum or dad on their wards, I would greet the patients, I would say hello. So I didn't have any fear at all. I was always made to feel very welcome, very comfortable. And as I said, my parents as first teachers, you will feed off the environment that you're in. So I remember listening to patients. I remember sharing stories. I remember when I was allowed to, maybe playing games with them. There was never any sense of these people are different from you. We were all one, and we were all one happy community. And in fact, I actually really enjoyed going to visit mum and dad at work.
Fantastic. No, that's fantastic to hear. And it is so important that we do sort of share that experience with our children and sort of show them the the right way to do things and the right way to interact with people. So that's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think what was really nice is, even before I realised it, they were helping my brother and I and my sister to break down barriers. Yeah. So we are treating people as people and not looking at them with a condition or a difference. Part of being a community is acceptance. So I think that's been a really valuable lesson, which I try and take with me. And as a parent, I try and share that as well with my own children.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's brilliant to hear. And obviously a lot of our conversations are around sort of vulnerability, the work that you do at Aylesbury Town Council, the work that I do within businesses and organisations to sort of bring awareness of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. So how do your experiences relate to understanding vulnerability?
I think vulnerability is something that it's happening now, Helen. It's absolutely happening now. And I think vulnerability is something that impacts everyone at some point, and it comes about through change. And I think what we're noticing now is, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we are all experiencing that vulnerability. But the key difference is it's at the same time. So that's making us feel even more scared. We've all experienced vulnerability, as I've said. It could be something as simple as losing your keys, your first day in a new job, your first day at school, whether that's first school or secondary school. If I look back at one of my first jobs, my time at Enfield Council, I was spending a lot of time speaking to people on the phone. My role as a customer liaison officer was really important because people were complaining. Basically, people were moaning. A lot of the time, we had to strip away what they were moaning about, because a lot of the time there is an iceberg effect. And it's not necessarily the situation, but there could be something underneath that. If I go forward a little bit, in my time at my local Citizens Advice Bureau in Aylesbury, I've learned so much about people. We're talking about vulnerability. I kind of use an analogy of a doctor's surgery and citizens' advice. People only go to these places when they are in need. For a lot of the time, maybe we wait that little bit too long before we become desperate. I was fortunate enough to volunteer at my local bureau, and then I gained employment. And I've learned so much in terms of my skills. I've learned about listening to people. I've learned about being compassionate, not judging people. I think taking those skills, they are a fantastic set of transferable skills. And I think taking them into my role as a communities officer in my current job at Aylesbury Town Council has probably stood me in such great stead in the work that I do and the way that I receive people. As you said, I work for the town council, and I'm working on a project supporting, creating and maintaining a dementia-friendly town. I began working on this project to raise awareness, and the awareness was about how we as a community can support and care for one another. And yes, whilst there is a strong focus on dementia, because we're looking at people's vulnerabilities, I think we all look at one another as a community. We are a collective of people, and we all care about where we live and work. One of the greatest assets that I think I have and I bring to my role is the building of networks and connections. And that has really been the success to this ongoing initiative. To date, at the Town Council, I've created 2,466 dementia friends in Aylesbury. Whilst that's
incredible, well done.
Thank you very much. Whilst that is a fantastic number, I think for me, the joy of that is that I've been able to spread a little bit of what I do, a little bit of the key messages that we are trying to get out there. I've worked with local businesses, schools, community groups, diverse communities. So it means that we are tapping into so many different areas of the communities. Whilst we are talking about dementia, we're looking at understanding and focusing on what people can do. We are trying to maintain an inclusive community. So the focus is on what can I do as opposed to what am I not able to do. For me, that's the cornerstone of a successful community.
That's brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think we've seen some real elements of communities really coming together in sort of during these challenging times. You know, you see on social media, you see on the news, people really supporting each other, and it's powerful and it's wonderful to see.
And it's heartwarming as well, as you know, some people might think that sounds quite cheesy, but we need that now because our connections are changing. The way that we engage with one another changes. So we have to find another way to bond. And if that is through supporting one another and helping, then it's a great thing.
And you can see streets coming together. I know that I think the NHS clapping on a Thursday is now stopped, but I went out and sort of clapped on a Thursday night, and you're waving to neighbours sort of down the road and up the road, and neighbours that you would probably before this would have just passed by and not really even said hello to. I mean, I'm a happy person, so I do say hello to most people.
I'm with you on that, Helen. You know I am.
But it is connecting people in the street, and just, with the VE Day, sort of all the Union Jack flags that were out. It was just fab.
Yeah. Well, I think as well what's happening is we're coming together as clusters. So like you said, on people's roads, just the simple kindness on the road that I live, neighbours are saying, do you know what, I'm popping to the shops. Do you want me to pick you anything up, some water or some milk? Maybe we wouldn't have said that before. No. So we are starting to change the way that we do things. As you said on VE Day, we sat outside and we had some of the most warm and fuzzy conversations. It was just nice. It was just nice to see people. And I think people need people.
And long may it continue. Let's hope people don't take that short-term memory and go back to where we were.
I think it's here to stay. I think so.
Oh, I really do hope so. So I like to see the positive in people. So we'll watch this space. So I mean, you mentioned about sort of everybody being in that vulnerable position and challenging times for everybody. So probably in your role as well, the conversations that you're having can be quite emotionally distressing and upsetting for you. How do you support yourself and stay grounded? Do you have any tools, theories, practices that you can share with us? Probably even more so during these times of COVID-19.
I think for myself, I'm constantly trying to learn, Helen. The world is changing, people are changing, but it's not just wanting to learn, it's also exposing yourself to that learning. I kind of believe that everything and everyone around us is a teacher. A lot of the things that I've done, I've exposed myself to. I've really enjoyed the work that I've done training to become a Dementia Friends champion. That's allowed me to go and deliver information sessions so I can share with people 5 simple messages about becoming dementia aware. That's helped me with my confidence. That's helped me be able to engage and again connect, which is a really important feature of the job and the role that I have. We obviously, in times of coronavirus pandemic, we've had a lot more webinars. So whereas a lot of my work previously was in a physical environment, we've now taken that to a virtual environment. So the webinars that I've been attending with the Dementia Friends Society, they've been really great because I've been able to connect with people doing a similar role. I've been able to get some ideas of how other community groups are working. I've taken great comfort in that. It's allowed me to touch base with people as well. Again, the webinars some of them have been yourself. They've allowed me to really get a wider network, which has been brilliant because obviously if you're not going out, you need to find a way to get to other areas of the world. So that's been a blessing. Using LinkedIn as a platform has been brilliant. There's lots of amazing work that's going on from businesses to community groups and to individuals as well. And I have to admit that I'm an avid podcaster, really, really avid podcaster. I listen to a whole heap of random things, but I think many of those podcasts that I listen to, they help make up who I am. Some of the ones that I've taken particular comfort from have been Brooke Castillo. So she's a life coach. She doesn't use any complicated language at all, very easy to engage with. And it's just like having a mentor, just someone that kind of just says, think about doing it this way. I think because people have different faiths and some people don't have faiths, we are connecting and coming together in many different ways. And in some ways, we're taking comfort for the communities that we are creating by joining podcasts and webinars as well, because now I see more familiar faces when I'm having conversations. I introduce myself less, but it's like seeing a good friend and you just kind of carry on. Again, for light entertainment, there's another brilliant podcast. It's called Rants and Randomness by a lady called Lovey Ajayi. She literally is looking at what's happening in the world and her take. And it's as simple as that. And again, you can dip in and out of it, better than watching the TV. Sometimes the television is giving us too much doom and gloom. So I think it's a really nice way to engage and find out what's going on. In terms of my own well-being and my mental health, I create things as well outside of my work. So I've been walking every Sunday, maybe 2-3 miles, and it's brilliant. It's just my own space. Obviously, because we've been at home because of lockdown, I'm actually beginning to appreciate nature again. So I've heard the birds singing. I have seen the blossom. I've seen the trees from when they've been bare to just now bearing fruits. And it's beautiful. Cooking and sharing food is a real passion of mine. Again, this whole community thing kicks in because it brings people together. So I love the idea of just sharing food and talking and sharing stories. And believe it or not, I'm now into gardening, Helen. Don't get me wrong. Alan Titchmarsh potentially move out the way, but the garden whisperers have been round. They have been round to my house. But no, thanks to the joys of social media, I have kindly received seedlings of tomatoes and cucumbers. So I've nurtured them and I've taken them. I do talk to them as well. They're in my greenhouse and I've now got a cucumber and I've got some carrots. Brilliant. So for me, that's in this time, that element of nurturing is great. And I've shared that with friends and family.
As well.
Oh, this is a massive win for me. This is massive because my dad loved growing tomatoes. And I said to my brother, if I can grow just one tomato, Dad will be so chuffed with me. So I'm working on getting to one tomato. Yeah.
Keep us updated with that progress.
I will. Another thing as well is family time. So spending time with family is really important. And my experience of spending time with my family, especially during the pandemic and when we've all been asked to stay at home, that for me has been a real blessing. I think there's nothing nicer than seeing your family grow. Blessed enough to have children, and obviously you get that maternity leave and you get your paternity leave. But this bit seems even better because Helen, I've got to see a teenager and a teenager think and do things. This is something that we probably wouldn't have had. I've really enjoyed this experience, with my family, with my husband, to just kind of change and really enjoy some of the things we do. So it's been brilliant.
Brilliant.
Really, really good.
And of course, we've got technology now, haven't we, that's keeping everyone together. I mean, I'm sort of Skyping my parents. Dad's almost 70, mum's 70. So they're sort of getting the hang of Skype now. And it's wonderful to see. So it's all very well having a telephone conversation, but actually
which is
see
nice.
them. But to see them, to see that they're looking well, they're smiling, they're engaging, they're still taking care of themselves. And also for them to see you, because that's like your quick kind of well-being check.
Yes. So I think you're right. I think technology has made some real strides. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I don't know whether we would have coped as well sort of 20, 30 years ago being in this same situation without that technology.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one to try and figure out, definitely, because 20 odd years ago we didn't have mobile phones. So the way we would have engaged would have been different. But I do think, just my opinion, that the way we would have looked out for one another would have been very different.
So earlier on in the podcast, you mentioned about meeting people in a physical environment. And obviously now lockdown is starting to be eased and people are starting to go about the new norm, as the phrase is. How do you see community engagement sort of moving forward? So in the next sort of 3, 6, 12 months, even further afield than that?
Helen, I miss people. And I think people definitely miss people. One of the beauties that we have from being in each other's company is that we have non-verbal cues. So you can see from someone's body language whether they're comfortable, interested, or they don't want to be there. Technology has moved mountains in the last year or so, but I think as a generation, we have felt it literally in the last 12 to 13 weeks, and we have seen the benefits of it. I would like to flag up something that I've noticed. There's a saying that says there are 3 sides to people. So you've got your personal, you've got your professional, and then you've got the face that you show to your mirror, which is the one that you basically show your own vulnerabilities. But now I think there's a 4th face, and that's your media face. That's the face that you you put on to take a Zoom call, or when because you know that you're going to have some kind of well-being assessment. You know now that when you watch GMTV or BBC, you know you're looking at someone's bookshelf, don't you? Yes. You go right in there and you have a look. We are very much trying to still create a vision of how we want people to see us. We're not always being true to ourselves. And sometimes we can come undone with that. We have to adapt without a shadow of a doubt. I'm kind of finding this when people say the new normal. I think it's becoming quite cliched for us because we've stopped listening to it. Instead of saying the new normal, we're adapting. We're not throwing away what we had before, but we have to evolve. We have to evolve the way that we are communicating and working and ultimately existing. And I think the positive side of having all of this technology, whilst we are not having as much physical interaction, we are reaching out wider than we have ever done before. Even a simple example was when the Crew Dragon was going up, I managed to sit my family down and we watched that. Now, if you imagine, teenagers probably wouldn't have been as interested, but we have all come together. Technology has allowed me to join in with my friends and colleagues on a quiz.
Yes.
So we are spending time together, but it's in a very different way. We're communicating differently, but still staying connected. So things like Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Skype, as you've mentioned, and Google Duo and even WhatsApp, they've transformed the way that we are going to exist, the way that we are going to work. And I think that is something that we shouldn't take for granted, but rather kind of work with it, because it's going to be a long time before things probably will go back to, if we want to say, what we think was normal.
Yes. And I think actually just having these face-to-face situations and sort of seeing people in their own homes has actually helped me to connect further with them, because it's almost like you're in my house with me having a cup of coffee. Yeah. And that's how I feel.
You're not sharing the biscuits.
I'm not sharing the biscuits. But it gives you an insight into their house. You can see pictures of loved ones on the wall behind them. Even when the children pop in, I think I've had a Zoom conversation with a chap whose little son came in dressed as Spider-Man. So there I am having a conversation with Spider-Man. So it helps you to engage more, doesn't it?
I think what you've just said there is key, in the sense of it's bringing in a human element.
Yes.
To what we're doing. And whilst it's very hard and it's very challenging, we are still these humans who have lives, who have characters. We've all got curves to the way we exist. We're not linear. And I think that's a really great thing that we have, and one that I think we haven't lost.
Yes. I've heard comments from businesses saying that actually their staff are engaging much better and more closely because they're having these conversations online. And I really hope that when they get back into the physical premises, that those relationships carry on strengthening and developing, and that support level is still there, even though you're in the physical environment.
And I think we're emailing less.
Yes.
We are emailing less. So for me, if we're emailing less, we're putting more emotion into what we're doing.
Yes.
Because obviously when you send an email, you might just be making a very gentle inquiry, but to the person who's receiving it, it could be like an order.
Yes.
Whereas now you'd either pick up the phone, or you might say, look, can I quickly Skype you, or however you communicate face to face. We're getting some compassion back into the way we communicate.
Yes.
So our community is becoming stronger.
And of course you can see that person's face when you're having that conversation. You can see how they're feeling, whether they've actually understood what you meant, whether even they're having a really tough time. Again, going back to that vulnerability.
Yeah.
As well.
And again, it is that iceberg effect, because I might present as everything is fine, but actually there could be a toddler, or there could be someone who needs me, and I'm like, just give me 2 minutes, and then you'd have to excuse yourself and go. So technology is a good thing for us. It really is. But what also we need to flag up is, it's for those who have access to it. So again, there are some people who are vulnerable because they don't have access to the technology. So in a lot of the work that I've been doing with some of the groups, we were looking at volunteer groups going in and around Buckinghamshire, mainly in the Aylesbury Town area. And someone said, what happens if people don't have access to social media? So how will they know the contact numbers?
Yes.
And someone in the group said, well, do you know what? We're going to print some posters and we're going to laminate them and we're going to put them in public spaces. And that's exactly what's happened. And because of that, the belief and the hope is that vulnerability will have changed. That's us looking after one another.
Yes.
That's how community works. We don't want to exclude people. We want to include,
yes.
Which links all the way back to the work that we're doing with dementia awareness, which links back to the work that, I've done previously at Citizens Advice. It's just a golden thread of a way to work.
I mean, that sort of kind of really sort of brings everything that I wanted to ask you and talk to you about to a close, really. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I love questions like this because you can really go anywhere with them. But I think obviously speaking with you now and just kind of sharing ideas and outlooks has been really insightful for me, and it's something that I will go away and process. But I think community is key. It really is key. But more important than that, to positively connect is vital. We've spoken a lot about what we're learning, and I hope that what we've learned, when I say learning, it's because we are still learning. I think what we're learning, we're not going to take for granted. Definitely, we are going to miss a physical presence in the short to mid-term, but it's really important to be able to think about the possibility of adapting. Nationally, the responses that we are all seeing, the coming together, the supporting local community, the supporting your neighbour, supermarkets having shopping hours to suit key workers, taxi drivers helping, local councillors. It's just such a movement. It's great. It's really great. I think for me on a local level in the town that I live in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire, I can see and breathe the community spirit. It's definitely come alive, and I think it's here to stay. Thinking about the community, thinking about communication, and thinking about compassion. So going back to my power of three again, my 3 C's: community, communication, and compassion. I think this is where I plan to be, Helen. That's definitely where I plan to be, spreading a little bit more sparkle in the town that I live in, whether I can get into local businesses, groups, diverse communities, schools, colleges, wherever I can go to help support. That's what I'd love to do. Some amazing things are happening, and I think we just need to keep going. So the opportunity that you've given me today to be able to talk about what community means, what vulnerability means, just share some of the things that are happening has been amazing, and I can't thank you enough. It's been really great, so thank you for that.
Oh no,
really,
you're welcome. Thank you. And I love those 3 C's as well: compassion, community, and communication. They're really powerful, aren't they? And
yeah,
I'll definitely put those 3 C's in the episode description so that
brilliant.
I love that, the listeners. Yeah, definitely. So fantastic. Thank you so much, Bee. It's been lovely having you as my guest today.
Helen, thank you so much. I hope our paths will cross again very soon.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure they will. So thank you.
I'm sure too. Thank you.
So if this conversation in today's episode has raised any questions or concerns with you, please do get in touch with either Bee or myself. You can email me at info@helenpettifer.com and I'll forward that on to Bee, and I'm sure she will respond as quickly as she possibly can. Thank you for listening to this episode of Unlocking Vulnerability. Please take care of yourself, stay safe, stay well, and remember to subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. You can also follow me on Twitter at @HPettiferTrain, and I look forward to you joining me on my next episode.